And it's a lot of people out there constantly like driven by the next thing in their life. But when I got to my 50s, I came back from the Antarctic after one of these most amazing expeditions. And I came back in thousands of people there. My son Patrick comes along, he gives me a hug and he said, Dad, welcome back. And then he says to me, he said, Dad, do you know what you missed throughout your life to be one of the most successful people like that a lot of people know? He said, what, son? And this is where balance now could have come in. He said, you missed parent-teacher meetings, you missed funerals, you missed weddings, you missed all of those, right? He said, your mom and dad are still alive. Everybody still loves you. It's not too late to change your drive and your ambition. So what it became then was my family after he said it. But I dedicated another book and I came to the end verse. It's a Robert Service verse, right? But if I had kept going, like I'm now 68, will I get to 80? I don't know, but basically I'm still happy. Yeah. I said to my oncologist, I said, look, I'm not afraid of dying. I'm afraid of not living. Right? But here is a verse, right, okay, that I changed to, right? The end of Robert Service's poem. He has failed, he has failed, he has missed his chance. He has only done things by half. Now life's been a jolly good joke on him and now it's time to laugh. He is one of the legions lost. He was never meant to win. He's a rolling stone and bred in the bone of the man that didn't fit him. So I decided I will fit him. And that's the hardest thing I'll ever do. I wasn't the best father in the world, right? I was out there working, providing and doing all this, but I was also very selfish achieving what I wanted to achieve. I can't become the best father, okay, but what I can try to do, and I'm not saying it'll work, but it's like that's the Everest I have now, is to become the best grandfather that I can become. And now what I'm finding is that my grandchildren's love for me is unconditional, right? Because I wasn't the father, I'm now the grandfather. And now they introduce me, like my little grandson has an amputated leg, right, okay? He's only 12, but he'll be bringing his friends across. That's my granddad, he's climbed Everest. Like little young fellas have said, do you really climb Everest? Even at 6, they know what Everest is.
Pat Falvey, it is an absolute pleasure to welcome you to the podcast.
And Paul, the same for me here from the wilds of Kerry.
The wilds of Kerry. Well, I'm speaking from the wilds of Wicklow.
Actually, we beat out Wicklow, and I love living in Ireland because they call Kerry the kingdom. And when heaven was full up, God sent me here, like to be in the kingdom of Kerry, which is like the second to the kingdom of God.
Yes, it is. We go down every year and we cycle the Ring of Beara, which is absolutely beautiful. Last year, the weather was horrendous, but we've had some incredible years down there with the weather, and there's a few more beautiful places to be. I don't prepare much for these conversations because I want them to be conversations. It's not a radio interview. I don't have a list of Pat's achievement that I go through A to Z because I like to interview really interesting and amazing people. And my passion is getting to know those people. I mean, I can Google you and I get 100 pages telling me what Pat did. And it's not easy to find out who Pat is. But because you've done so much, I need just some sort of an intro. And I'm going to read this intro. And why I've never done this before, but why I'm reading the intro is because you've done so freaking much. There's no way I can introduce you without reading it. So be patient with me reading this for a moment. But I said, I just have to read this because it has to be done. So this is what I read about you. And I suppose I've known the name Pat Falvey. Well, I'm an Irishman also, but I've known the name of Pat Falvey for a very, very long time. And to anyone else who does, I just wonder if they realize exactly what you've done. So I'm going to do this little bit of a summary. So Pat, I feel this is your life, but I'll go through it anyway. You're a globally acclaimed explorer, a motivational speaker, a filmmaker, an author, a serial entrepreneur, a coach. You come from Cork, but you live in Kerry. You're known as Ireland's most celebrated adventurer. You were the first person in the world to complete the 7 summits twice by climbing Everest from its north and its south sides. You were the leader of the first Irish-led team to reach the South Pole, and you've also stood on the North Pole. You led I'm tired just reading this. You led the first Irish team to ski across Greenland ice cap. You were the leader of the largest ever team to complete the South George Traverse, a journey made famous by fellow Irishmen Ernest Shackleton and Tom Crean. And you've led many expeditions to some of the world's remote and inaccessible places on the planet and explored and analysed the mindset of over 30 tribes. when you hear someone reading that back to you, I don't believe,
I
how do
actually
you
don't
feel?
believe it, right?
It couldn't be you.
I always think of that, right? Because I come from a poor background. Like I lived on the north side of Cork City. The derogatory name for us was Norries. That means the people from the poor,
Norris, yeah, I've
right?
heard that.
And I lived with my grandmother. Like my parents lived alongside, but my grandmother's husband left her with 6 kids. Now remember, I'm 68 now, right? You can imagine how
Yeah.
difficult that was. Never paid her a penny. She had to work
Yeah.
and to rear her 6 kids. So when they all left, I was 6 and we lived up the road. So I was sent down to live with her. But the first thing she did, it was like child labor. She brought me a pram and that was my first business, right? At 6, yeah. And I was 12, I could afford to buy a house. And at 15,
You're kidding me. At 12, you could afford
I
to buy a
became the
house.
youngest door-to-door salesman in the world. And at 15, I left school to become a millionaire. But that's not what this is about, what came, what's next. And when I listen back to what you just said there, because it's very rarely is put in front of me like that, I think of the child at 6 that was looking out. We lived on a hill, which was opposite Cork Airport. And I used to look out and I see all these planes coming in and landing, right? And I was wondering and I was baffled where all these planes were going. And little did I ever think, because of where we came from, that I would be in a plane and actually travel the world. Never mind saying like to go on like, and all that happened was, it was the adversity of life, the successes, the failures, the roller coaster just kept going and going. And you know, that's the metaphor for people's lives. Your life, anyone that's listening to us here, life is a roller coaster. And what happened at the end is I'm actually more popular now speaking around the world than I ever was when I was younger, because loads of people say, how did you become the youngest door-to-door salesman in the world? How was it that you actually became a millionaire when you were 18? How was it that you became the first person in the world to do everything that you said there? It's like, just keeps going. How was I illiterate when I was 30 and written 7 books and have 9 more to write? How did I become a film producer? I'm going, did she do all this? So if I was to listen to you now, and actually, and it wasn't me that you mentioned, right? I'm going to say, Jesus Christ, how did I feel to do all of that? And it baffles me to this day, but it's constantly about what's next, and totally enjoying my life. I don't work as a job. I see work as living my life the way that I want to live it. And I hope that what we're instilling in other people is that life isn't a rehearsal, it's a performance. And if it's a case, you keep thinking like that. And what I do love, I just finished a leadership program with a big pharmaceutical company just as yesterday before I came on here. And I love seeing all these new young leaders coming up and they ask me in for advice. I'm a bricklayer.
Yeah.
And it's not that I have any degrees after my name. My degrees are the tapestry of life.
When I was maybe 17 years of age, my father sat me down and laid out a plan for me, which was to become an electrical engineer and join his electrical contracting company. And thankfully, I'm 60 this year, so thankfully I said to him, Dad, I'm not going to college. I'd hate to be an engineer. And by the way, I've worked summers for your electrical contracting company, and I would hate to be an electrical contractor. But I remember him saying something to me. He said to me when I said, Dad, I'm not going to college. I'm done. I'm not going to college. I'm not suited for it. He said to me, son, trust me, if you don't do that, you'll regret it. Now, when I tell that story, I do it with a little bit of smirk going, maybe I will regret it someday, but I've yet to regret it. And it's interesting you're going, you couldn't write up until you were 30 years of age, something. Which I encourage people to go to college.
Before I start anything, I do.
Yeah.
No, I like it's like an oxymoron, really. Like, but it's.
Yeah, I mean, I sent my 3 kids. Well, I say I sent, but I encouraged my 3 kids did university education. Probably your kids did as well, and I encouraged them to do it. but two things. What I'm saying is it's not for everybody. And there are some of us that just go, you can't, I'm just not going to thrive in there, but have the ability to thrive in life. But when you tell the story of the 6-year-old pushing the pram, being able to afford a house at 12, I'm going, actually, now it kind of doesn't surprise me, because most of us 6 years of age are not doing that. So there was obviously, I know there's a nature and nurture, but there was obviously something. There was the circumstances you were in of poverty and you needed to do that. But there's a lot of people that just destroy their lives because of that. So there obviously was something inside of you that was born to fly.
What I will say is, right, that it is of who I connected with, right? Okay. Everybody, like I'm looking here, and every single person out there is a mentor, is a coach. They're a coach to their kids. The formalization of your brain, which is the same size brain as anyone in the world, right? Okay, whether you're living in West Papua New Guinea and Stone Age tribe and things like that. So I happened to be born into a family that were always very positive. There was nothing I couldn't do. There was like, I'll give you an instance. My grandmother,
and these were very poor people, but they had a very positive mental
But they
attitude.
also had an ethic of the fact that they wanted to provide for their family. They weren't given the tools that they could do this. So the only way that they could do it,
they weren't given privilege, is what you mean.
It was work.
Yeah, it was hard work. Yeah.
And like what I learned from my grandmother when I went to her, she just seen me like as my grandson is 6, he's going to be poor, and I'm going to show him, right, that if he works hard, he can get out of it, right? And like I say this. So she taught me from a very young age, like she said, this is the business. But what I never realized is that business became a collaboration, right? Because everything I collected that I brought down to the coal cave from the poor people of Cork, I brought them down to my grandmother, because she was getting old at that stage. She was 4'11". She couldn't run up and down the steps. So she had me running up and down the steps. And then people would chase me away with a brush, and they'd say, "Get away from our house," right? And I was like the rag man. And then I get down to the end of the steps, we go to the next house, she sent me up again. And she taught me the aspect of resilience and not rejection. So I go back again the next week, and next they give me something, because we were going through an industrial revolution in Ireland at the time. So some of the poorer people were getting jobs, but they might buy a shirt like this and it doesn't fit and they throw it out. And my job was to go around to collect them. I'd bring them down to, my grandmother was the first amazing entrepreneur that I knew. She couldn't read, she couldn't write. She signed her name with an X, right? And so then what happened is I was saying, "I'm not going up there. You get up there, right?" Okay. And I go up. And eventually, through persistence, and that's the reason about not giving up, people started giving me stuff. Here's another one in relation to the mindset. Because my mindset at 6, and we're developing, it depends on the mentors that you have. She was brilliant. She taught,
incredible.
Think you can, you will. If you think you can't, you won't. So when you're forming rejection, and I've been rejected loads of times, right? And I failed loads of times. But actually took my failure as a learning resolve, right? So anyway, what happened in the end of the day, she used to call me her bar of gold. And I never understood it. Never understood it for years and years and years. And she'd tell everyone, "This is my bar of gold." But what she meant is she couldn't do it. So she collaborated with me, who had a pair of legs, and a smiley young lad, up and down the stairs. I collected the clothes. And this is what she did. And this is where I learned the first aspect of collaboration, right? I'd bring him down to the coal case. She'd sell him. And at 6 years of age, she set up a bank account for me in the Cork Savings. That was, a mutual savings society at the time. And we had a piggy bank. Or look, I just show you. I still, to this day, have a piggy bank. Just to remind me of all those years gone by. And what she'd do is she'd put 20%, and she'd actually put it in to the piggy bank, right? And at the time, there was a lock at the end of it. And every month we'd go to the Cork Savings, and she'd open it, and it'd spill out. And I used to be at the counter looking like this, and she'd put it in. And then she'd get to £250. And remember, this is back in
I'm thinking that wasn't £250 19 when?
Like I had £750 in 1969 and a house was about 4,000, right?
Yeah, that's an incredible
But like
amount of money.
looking at that 12, I had about 100,000 at the bank at today's rate in
Wow.
2024. And it was like,
Yeah.
but I never realized what it was. But what she did do, she taught me, I collected something for nothing. She sold it for something, but she rewarded me as her bar of gold. Her bar of gold meant was I was creating the asset for her to sell. And she put 20% away for me. And it eventually ended up at £750. But because she didn't understand banks, she opened up 3 different bank accounts in case someone would steal it. She taught by having 3 bank accounts. If someone stole that one, I'd still have 2 left. So she had no trust because when she was on her own, she used to have her money under the mattress. Someone actually stole her money. And in actual fact, they were hiding at the time, and we were all very upset about that. But she was a tough, no-nonsense woman that actually worked hard all her life, that gave me the work ethic when I was 6 to 12. And like my life goes in segments, right? And taught me self-belief, right? And never accept rejection. Never accept rejection. Do not be defined from where you come from, right?
Do you know, I said something, I interrupted you a moment ago, and I said something which I realized was wrong. I said you weren't brought up privileged. And what I meant for that is you weren't brought up in a wealthy family. I'm sitting here thinking you were brought up incredibly privileged. If you were brought up by a grandmother who loved you, who told you were her bar of gold, instead of saying you were a useless little shite, you never meant anything. You were brought up in a family with such a positive moral ethic and mindset. I'm actually, when you think of it, that is a much greater privilege than growing up with wealth, because a lot of people who grow up with parents who are successful, we see it around us now, they get none of these values, they get none of the work ethic. But I think the thing they miss more than anything else is a belief in themselves, because they don't have to do anything for themselves. And then they become adults. So the belief you had probably in yourself by 10 years of age, there's adults of 40 years of age who've actually never had the opportunity to get
that's
that.
not where it stops.
Right.
I
Okay.
think a very good one. Like at that 12-year-old, I had 750 quid in the bank, right? Okay. In 1969, I could show you a slide there, right? I had the duffel coat with the timber buttons, right? Okay. I had my pram full up of clothes. And at the time I was good. I was a Del Boy. And basically to this day, I know some people might think that is terrible, but actually I'm quite proud if someone calls me, I'm a Del Boy, right?
You're an honest Del Boy.
I'm a rogue, and part of my success have come from being that rogue, right? And always try, I always look at Del Boy, he's always trying to actually figure out something.
Yeah, he's solution
oriented. He's if he see 1,000 televisions there, right? Okay, it's all crock.
Yeah.
He says 1,000 televisions there. I can sell the 1,000 televisions. Well, anyway, just on this story, it's about the self-belief, right? And how it came about. And I know I'm a self-publicist, right? Okay, whether you like some people like me, some people loathe me, right? But the thing with it is, I had to do what I did to become who I became, because no one was going to give me a present of it. But anyway, there I was at 12 years of age, down the Cold Quay. It's like a lot of the poor marts around the world, because I don't know where your podcast is going, but in Ireland, we have a thing like Moore Street, where all the poor people go and people buy for poor people. So here I was with my pram, and I pushed it down, and there was these Americans. At the time, Americans love, we have a huge diaspora in Ireland of Americans, right? So they seen this poor kid, with a cap and a duffel and all these clothes, poor ragged clothes. And they said, my God, they come over to me and they say, hey, kid, do you mind if we take your picture? Because they wanted to see this smiley, happy kid, poor. I always remember.
Is you charging?
Yeah, I did this.
Oh, you're right, of course.
That was my first modeling job, right? Yeah, I got sixpence, the people.
Easy
People wouldn't know what sixpence is. And I'm going to tell you this, Paul. To this day, right, I have been sponsored sometimes down to my underpants, right? I never in a lot of time had,
Don't share those photos,
here we
please.
are, like, like say, there's a sponsorship jacket for you, right? Okay. I mean, they say if I
Yeah.
wear a jacket, it could sell 1,000 jackets, right? So
Yeah,
what's he wearing?
right,
What's
yeah.
he wearing, right? And anyway,
Yeah,
what
yeah.
happened was these Americans said, I got my sixpence and I stood there and they said, turn this way, turn that way. And there I was, this poor Irish kids not realizing what they were using it for. But there was a conversation occurred, right? I was very working. That was 12. And they said, oh, they were talking to each other. These poor Irish kids, they're way happier than our American kids, and
Yeah.
like they were as much as saying we should stay poor, right? And like
Yeah.
I learned this lesson as well because I go to a lot of third world countries. So anyway, I go home and I get up to the top of the hill and I'm kind of pissed off because I'm tired actually from pushing my pram up the hill, right? And I go to my grandmother, Nan, are we better off poor? Oh my God, did I get a clatter? I got dragged down the steps. Our house wasn't the width of this room, right? Okay. Like if you look at it, it's about 18 foot across, right? And she brought me into this room. And like in Ireland in the old days, and like senior from Ireland, you probably get this, they used to have 4 pictures on the wall. So she caught me and she put me up and she said, see that's Sacred Heart, because we were Catholic, the spiritual leader. And she said, that's the Pope, right? And like that's the church leader. And then she put me up and Eamon de Valera was president at the time. And she said that's because she was Republican, right? That's our president. And he won in 32 counties. And she just getting it into me. I was a Republican, right? Or, like at the time I would have wanted the 32 counties. But she did something else. She put me up to the 4th picture on the wall. Do you remember what that 4th picture would have been in your grandmother's place? No? He was the most powerful man in the world, she told me, and he was Irish. He was in America at the time.
JFK.
Every household at the time had a picture of JFK on it. And what she said to me, she said, see that guy there? I just want to tell you, you're as powerful as him.
Wow.
You're as powerful as him. And I want you always to see, never be defined from where you are. My grandson has the brains of the President of the United States, and it was JFK. Well, I tell you the honest truth. I was afraid to disagree with my grandmother. So I believed I was as powerful as JFK. And 4 years later, and you have to have a purpose to do something. 4 years later, when I was 15, I left school to become a millionaire. Because someone, and this is where I say sometimes you need hunger. My dad's business went broke. He went down to the pub, he was just in that state at the time. My father's my greatest mentor, right? And he was drinking. But one of his employees came to the house and my dad's car was outside. And my mom was inside and she was saying, where's Timmy? Where's Timmy? That's my dad's name, right? And she said, he's not here. He's here. And what he did is he kicked the door, right? In on top of her. She fell. I heard the commotion. She fell back, hit her head, and went unconscious. So I came out and I nearly killed your man. I swear to God, his name was Charlie Gamble. So I don't even say who he is. But I always remember it was a changing point. I caught him by the throat and put him up because he was after hurt him.
You 15 at this stage,
right?
you say?
And I nearly strangled him, right? Because I just got this energy. I seen my mother there and I was trying to shake her up like she was coming around and then he was still there. He was pissed, like drunk. So I went back in and I left school to become a millionaire.
Yeah.
I was actually practicing as a bricklayer at the time. That's what my parents were, my father was, and all our family was. So I left school saying to everyone, I am going to become a millionaire. And this is an aspect of visualization, right? It's an aspect that I learned for people when they have a dream, goal, or aspirations that they need. They need a vision, right? They need a purpose. Did I know what a millionaire? I didn't, but all I heard was like, if you were a millionaire, you didn't have to worry about money. So all I wanted was a purpose at the time that our family would not have to worry about money, right? That we would not be poor. My grandmother was teaching me the entrepreneurial aspect. And she also taught me from that, by the way, right? And like when I go around the world, like I often have people saying the same thing. Oh, look at those lovely poor people, right? They're crapping inside in the holes, right? No flushing toilets or anything like that. And my grandmother was teaching me at the time, nobody wants to, this is for a parent now or someone that's getting better. Nobody wants to live in an anthropological museum so other people can come in and stare at them. Right?
Of course, yeah.
Lots of people actually think that, look, if you handle wealth well and you share it or you're good and you're not greedy, right? Well, it can be a very positive thing, and especially if you help others, right? So anyway, the thing with it is, didn't I leave school to become a millionaire? But I was a bricklayer. I started going around. Can you imagine, like in a 5,000 house estate, all poor people, and this jackass is going around saying, like, how are you doing? I'm going to become a millionaire. I'm going to become a millionaire. I'm going to become a millionaire. So, like, I got rejected more times, like by people thinking I was a jumped up asshole, right? But my vision had a purpose, and you have to have a purpose. Like if you want a purpose to buy a house, a home, if it's a case that you want to, like you have to see it because your mind actually drives you towards it. And eventually, by the time I was 17, I wasn't a millionaire. And was I pissed off?
2 years and you weren't a millionaire.
Off, right? Okay. So at this stage, as you said, you talked about college, and I went to my dad, who I love dearly. Like he was in politics as well. He went on to be the Lord Mayor of our city. And so I says to my dad, I said, Dad, I was doing well, right? I had 20 million at the time. And I said to Dad, Dad, I'm not a millionaire. I don't know, like all these fellas were telling me about going to college and they were all in college. Great bit of advice. And by the way, I advocate people like getting the best education they can. Cool. I didn't have that opportunity, right? So therefore we have to take opportunity and what happened in tandem. But I'd advise everyone go to college. But anyway, what happened was that he sat me down and he said, son, you're a dreamer. You're the biggest dreamer I know. And I passed this advice on to everybody. He said, son, dream and dream big, he said. There's no problem in that dream about being a millionaire. No, I wasn't too badly wealthy off myself, even at 17, right? But he said, remember, it's in the following of the dream is where the success lies, not in achieving it. Let achieving it be the bonus, right? So what happens with loads of people, and I had some great mentors, and that's the reason why I became a mentor, a coach to other people, right? Okay, so I try to pass on the philosophy of this 68-year-old you're looking at here that has just tried to set up, have a mindset of a business that could be worth $500 million at the moment, right? Okay, whether it will or not, it doesn't matter, right? Okay, I'm following a course at the moment. But, the big problem with people is Lawrence of Arabia, he gave me a book at the time, and there was a verse in it, and he had it all marked out. As I look out here, I don't know how many people you have in your podcast, but the thing with it is, it said something like this, because I know each and every person out there are dreamers. There's not one person who don't dream. But this is what happens. Most people dream in the dusty recesses of their mind to wake in the morning to find it was vanity. But the dreamers of the day may enact their dreams with open eyes and make their dreams a reality. In others, most people are procrastinators. So if you don't go for what you want and you dream about it, then you're, I would say, a procrastinator, right? So when I say that to people get very upset, and I say, okay, then, and they come into me as a coach and they'd say, or a mentor, and they'd say, this is my dream, this is my goal, right? But they don't work for it. And I'll give one quote that was beaten to me as a young person, right? And I am now profoundly saying this to whoever your listeners are, right? That I know the secret about how you can have anything that you want. My greatest ambition is to become the best grandfather in the world now. That's my biggest ambition, right? And that's the hardest thing I'll ever do. But what I want to do is, and like you can use this anytime you want to, right? Okay, and give me a credit for it. But I got this from my parents, right? But they were telling me like about, hey son, you've got to want what you want, right? And then I was saying, yeah, because loads of people want stuff, right? And they like stuff, but they won't do this. and they don't get it. And I said, like, what do you want? People say, I want a new car. I want a new home. I want a nice girlfriend. I want to become the best parent in the world, right? But here is how you can be anything that you want and get it, right? You ready for this?
I'm
Think
listening.
about what you want, and I'll guarantee you it's about attributes. If you want something bad enough, then you've got to go out and fight for it. You've got to give up your time and your peace and your sleep for it. If your life seems so lonely and useless without it, but all that you do is you plan and you dream is about it. If gladly you fret for it, but then sweat for it, but then go for it, but go for it with all of your capacity, your strength and tenacity. If you simply go after the things in life that you want, though tired, gaunt and lonely, and if day after day you besiege and beset it, Paul, you know what will happen? You'll end up, you will get it. And what happens with lots of people, they like things, they want things, but the thing with it is, it's about attributes. It's about actually positive mindset. It's about, like anyone, like I'm fed up of listening to these people online, right? To say how you can become a millionaire and how you can have all your dreams come true in 6 hours a week. For someone that has, and maybe some people can do it, but for most of the people that are taken in by it, it is bullshit, right?
I have a lot of friends who are business owners. A lot of them are certainly multi-millionaires. And so I know a lot of people in that circle, and I talk to them quite honestly. I have not met one of them over the years who didn't work very, very hard for it. Not one of them. I haven't met one of them who hasn't met serious adversity they haven't had to overcome. I haven't met one of them who didn't find it difficult to get there and took them a long time. And you know, I've been obsessed maybe since my late teens, 20s with personal development. So I've studied everything from, I just love all that stuff, absorbed it. But like you, I see all the stuff online, and I hate the word manifestation. And I'm going to tell you why I do. Because when you say, and I agree with a lot of what you say, if you visualize something and you work towards it, most people can achieve most things if they're prepared to work for it. What I don't like about the word manifestation is it suggests that you can have something without effort. Now, that's a little bit like me sitting here and going, you know, Pat, you've inspired me. I want to go on your next Everest expedition. And no doubt I can do that. But you're going to explain to me how extraordinarily difficult that will be. And if I don't do it properly, I will kill myself. And if I said to you, but I'd like to manifest myself on Everest, you'll go, you won't be coming on my expedition because I'll be taking you home.
Yeah, I had one very famous TV presenter actually come to me one time, and we were going to the Antarctic, right? And so, like, I put an ad in the paper saying, ordinary men and women wanted for extraordinary expedition, I train, you may die. I got 7,500 applicants in fairness, right? The minute I told them what they had to do it, right, that actually dropped away down to 1,000, right? And then this TV presenter, because like it's a really good idea to do this, right? He gets on and he says, you know, hi, I won't mention the name, right? Okay, because within Ireland it would be very popular. He says, I want to go to the Antarctic and you need me. And I go, okay, I could get that. Like, it would be good to have this person.
Yeah.
And then I started going along. We're going to Norway. We're doing this and we're doing that and we're doing this, because there was a crossing in South Georgia, which is a very difficult, that's Ernest, and then your people might know who he is, right? Okay.
Well, I mentioned it in the intro. Yeah.
But anyway, he says, well, I'm too busy. And I go, how do you mean you're too busy? Well, there's an election coming up and I have to do this and I won't find the time, but you need me. And I said, sorry, right? I can't have you. Even if I wanted you and needed you, because you're not going to do the job. And what I do, 50 climbers with what I have done, right, have died. Not on my teams, but 50 people
who've done with what you're doing
have died, right? Okay. Including a very couple of close friends, right?
Yeah. Because it's incredibly
Well,
dangerous.
and this is the way I look at life. It's about these people that want to come in and do it easy, right? Well, maybe they can, right? Okay, so I said no. Oh my God, did he freaking lash me out of it, right? Because of the fact that I wasn't going to let a famous, you know, TV
Celebrity,
yeah,
whoever, yeah.
come, but it was too dangerous, and to
Yeah.
me, I prefer to have going with me an enthusiastic donkey than someone that's a thoroughbred that have gone through like that are, just feel entitled to be part of my team, right? So I always say that, like, in other words, do the work. And look, I just love people. Like, if someone comes in that door there and they have a passion, there was two people came in the other day and they were the coaching session, right? And they were going polar. And like, they were willing, say, to pay me like a good amount of money for advice, right? But when they came in, they were so enthusiastic. They were showing me their gas bottle. They were showing me all the training they were doing. And at the end, they said, like, how much? And I said, I couldn't change it because they were like me. And I want to do it still, and I'll follow them. I said, look, go away. I said, like, put it towards something on your expedition. So the whole thing with it is, and then the other side of it, people like coaching and mentoring will help other people, even if they don't have money, if they have enthusiasm. Like, this is my home here. I travel the world for 7 months of every year for the last 36 years. And then I speak around the world for the other 5, you could say. But this is my epicenter, right? Most of my greatest, what do they call it? Mentorees come here, and we have a cup of tea in my kitchen, which is just out there, right?
Yeah.
And we go for a walk. And to me, that's what it's all about. But like, I love people with a passion. I'm, probably 2 years' time now, I'm 70. Like, I have more years behind me than in front of me. I just want to keep going like this, like whether it's a year, 2 years, 5 years, helping other people achieve. Like, what I earn now, I never probably need to work another day in my life. And as I said, the good problem is I don't feel I work. I feel I'm involved in things that is a passion. And
do you think that's possible for everybody? I think you're very blessed. Is it possible for everybody to pursue their passion as a career? Probably not. No, I mean, a lot of people, but you can do both, or you can maybe even be more passionate about your career.
I think that we have to take into consideration that people have families and things like that. I believe a lot of people underperform themselves, right?
I agree.
I believe, like, with a proper focus and a proper drive, you can achieve anything. Like, my son is 40, and like, he didn't go to college either. Like, I showed him, like, it's not that I showed him a couple of tricks, but apples don't fall far from the tree. So I will take this. He's observed, even though he goes, go ahead, Dad. Like, he was the
He's your son, right? Wouldn't he? He's not going to listen
to me, right?
Yeah. Other people will pay a fortune for your advice. He's not taking it.
At the same time, he does take it, right? And right?
By osmosis.
I said, I retired when I was 40, right? So my son came to me, and I have a thing on exit strategy. I know we're going all over the place here, Paul, right?
We're having fun. That's all that matters.
Some people will understand it, some people won't. But like, people should have an exit strategy in some sort of fashion or form, right? Or else, like, be willing to stay with it. But anyway, he said to me years ago when I went broke because he thought I was a fool, right? He said, and like, I'm not going to be like you and go broke, right? Okay, well, outside the fact, like, he's had tough times too. But he retired at 40.
Of course. He retired at 40.
For 2 weeks. Just to say to me he could retire. Notice he had enough money to retire. He did an exit strategy on 2 businesses, right? So, like, the way we look at that is, I said to everybody, if you set yourself a target and like, to do something, this is just a focus, but like, did he work hard? Yes, he did. He's sitting back now, and this is where I went wrong as well. I sat back and I thought I had the Midas touch, and I relaxed for a short period of time, and I lost all the good people that I had, right? And I went broke. And I, like, and we can talk about that if you want to, but the whole thing with it is, you have to reward yourself sometimes, even though it's momentarily. But he just wanted to say to me, Dad, I told you I would do it and I've done it. Right?
Yeah.
Now, I swear to God, he is the best candidate I've ever seen of going broke soon. Because he's reinvested, and like we would have differences of opinion, like in returns of investment. I love it. I love it. He's a risk taker. He takes calculated risks. And then one day the calculated risk may not pay off. Hopefully it won't happen.
Yeah.
But, you have to work. And I also don't believe like that. Like I have another son who's completely different. He works for a corporate environment, and at 47, he's burnt out. He doesn't want to climb the ladder. So now I said to him, look, son, just stop. Right? And he says, what do you mean? I said, look, stop. You need a year out. Like you're burnt out. Right? And he does very well. So he's taking a year out and he's gone walking with me for a year. He's going away on the expeditions. Like that
will change his
April,
life.
But he actually feels he works, right? And the feeling of that, he's in something he's not happy with, right?
Yeah.
And happiness is the greatest resolve in relation to that. I would ask people, and I would ask everybody out there, how happy are you? Because that's like, for me, I work in a currency of happiness, not in a currency of money, not in a currency of economics, right? Like Bhutan, its main currency is happiness. So like if you're like, I'm 90%, I'm 68 years of age, I'm 98% happy. I'm probably one of the few people they would call in the Buddhist philosophy, which is part of my philosophy, is I'm nearly in nirvana, right? But then like when we ask people like, and this is what we do, like a lot of people, executives and coaches are burnt out, and today, like lots of people are burnt out mainly between 30 and 45, because that's where all the stresses come in, marriages, kids,
You're into a bigger job, you've more responsibility,
3 kids, and then what happens, they're trying their best and they're being grinded down, right? And like, I haven't got the panacea like for the cure for everybody. But the whole thing about it is sometimes you need to pull back. Sometimes, you're trying to make money. And I have great stories about that, about sometimes like there is a need to pull away from, like what your dream was. Like Dad said, like, it's in the following of the dream is where the success lies. You can stop your dream anywhere and actually switch direction. You don't have to stay focused to the point of burnout, right? Where was, so anyway, my son went up the ladder, but he wasn't where he wanted to be. 10 years ago, I said, son, he was paid very good money. He took a half slice of his salary, and he moved from, he was in America, then moved to Dublin, then moved back to Cork because that's where he wanted to be. And then all of a sudden, like, he's up the scale again, right? And he could have 20 people he's managing in, a fairly big corporate environment. And he's not liking it because the only way for him is to keep pushing up. And I swear to God, he'd probably prefer to be a gardener, right?
Yeah.
So I said, right, it's time to he's 47 now, it's time to take time out. So then he said to me, he said, Dad, remember when I was 17, we went to Kilimanjaro? I said, yeah. And he said, I'd love to go back to Kilimanjaro again. So at 47 now, he's coming back. Because I never forget when we got to the summit, he said, Dad, you're aware, like, I can use a course, one course.
You can, of course,
He said, Dad, you're a weird fucker, but I love you. At 17, right?
Yeah.
And that was the best compliment. Yeah, I am a weird so-and-so. Okay. I'm eccentric probably to the point of view of unusual. But sometimes I get away with murder because people think I am eccentric, which I'm not at all. I'm quite a normal person. I'm the same as everybody else, and I try to think.
I have to challenge you in that. I don't think you're a normal person. I mean, you're a very likable person. You have an incredible amount of passionate energy. But normal is the wrong word, usual. It's not in my experience, it's not usual to have achieved what you have achieved in life, because most people haven't achieved it. That's one thing. It's not usual to declare the level of happiness you feel, because most people aren't successful in life. There are a lot of very successful people, and you're one of those. There's not that many successful, happy people. That's That's a very, very rare
But you
breed.
know what? My dad said to me one time, and you can see now, like, where this is going back, right? Right? Um, Happiness is a state of mind. If I had to weigh less, like for instance, my father always says to me, "Do you know, like where someone says something bad about you, right?" And before, like
Yeah.
I'm going to prove to them differently, right? Okay, now whether I was
Mhm.
successful or a failure. So he taught me a great lesson. Like when I said I was going to climb Everest, people said like, "Oh, he's a one-tick wonder. Like he's going to do this," and and like I train elite athletes and I train football team.
Yeah.
Said I tell them one thing, right? I go along and I say, "This I learned from my father," right? So I used to say like, "Ah, he's a complete BX, right? Bollocks, right? Okay."
Yeah.
So and they could tell you straight to your face, you know. And I go and I shake their hands and I said, "Thanks very much for your opinion. But I must say this, I'm not taking any notice of you, but I do appreciate you telling
Yeah.
me what you feel." Oh, so you can go away
Yeah.
and keep that. So I don't let people's opinion actually affect my belief. Because the biggest
Mm.
thing that you can do, and especially like, you know, as an elite athlete, you know, like if you have a failure, people depressed and everyone are after you. Like, so it's not my opinion what they think, right? If I believe
Mm.
I'm good, which I do, I totally believe I'm a good person. I totally believe I'm not coming from a bad place. But then you get all the critics, you know, and then it's theirs
Yeah.
that say like, who does he think he is? And I just say, it is not for the weak man to get into the arena who has a blood, sweat, and tears to make their dream or goal a reality. So please, will you fuck off?
What I'm thinking, listen to you, is that you've you've had such an inspiring life and you've done all these incredible things, and yet in the 45 minutes that we've spoken, the the tone of your conversation has been continually to inspire and to encourage others. That it's been continually to talk about how you were inspired, and everything you're saying is to encourage other people. I'm getting, and that's interesting to me because I find that way a lot with successful and fulfilled people are mostly passionate about encouraging people. The people who are criticizing are not the people who have scaled Everest, who've built and successful. They're the people who have never
But
done
so,
it.
can I just
Uh,
actually come in there because I have to put this in. I did all of this, right? Okay. And I happen to be able to speak to the likes of yourself and other people because I've done what we call the physical aspect of things that people would sometime would have said is impossible, or if
yeah,
not impossible, to have the continuation of it, right? What I will say is everybody has an Everest. The woman that has the child that's born, to rear that
yeah,
child through life is their Everest, right?
yeah,
So, whereas, yes, I have never thought about it because I just kept on doing things, right? And
mm,
it happens that when you call out what you do, sometimes I would, I think of my grandmother and she telling me I was as good as JFK, right? But I never actually set out to be,
she'd be
oh,
proud
she'd
now,
be
wouldn't
proud.
she?
She's looking down on top of me and I
Wow,
told her some of my barrack. But
wow,
the big thing with it is, please don't think you have to be a millionaire. One thing, because not everybody, we have 7.5 billion people in the world,
yeah,
is to inspire you to have your Everest, the same as my Everest
mm,
now to become the best grandfather. Forget all the other achievements, right? Forget all the
yeah,
other achievements,
mm,
right? My Everest is that. And I'm just showing to you, when you look, every single one that I'm looking at, right, when they were born, we had the same size brain, no matter where you are in the world, right? We were extraordinary. Believe it or not,
mm,
we were extraordinary. We came out of the womb and we were a bundle of joy and we were extraordinary. What happens with life, it makes us ordinary. And when people say, I'm an ordinary person, yeah, like I'm an ordinary person, but it's what you think about and who you hang out with. And if it's a case you're the best parent that you can be, right? If it's a case that you go on and you inspire others, like I had a Christian brother like who inspired me, and I'll never forget this. He wanted to expel me, but he gave me a chance. I poured a bottle of sulfuric acid in on my brother Wright's tadpoles because your mom fired the dust at me. I was only 14. But anyway, he was going to expel me, the head teacher, right? A big, tall Christian brother with a letter. And he gave me a great bit of advice. He said, "Do you like school, Pat?" He says, "Do you like killing God's creatures first?" And of course, I felt guilty at 14. I think it's about 200 of them. And at the moment, there's frogs laying tadpoles outside in my pond, and I want to get rid of them, and I can't actually pump them out because I take back to it, right?
Yes.
I said, "No, brother." And I started feeling sad. And he said, "Do you like school?" I said, "No, brother." He said, "Do you like anything about school?" I said, "No, brother." "Do you like any teachers?" I said, "No, brother." Right? And he says, "Do you know what you've done?" He says, like, "I'm going to have to expel you see?" And I smartly thought, this is a great job. Like, I'm going to be expelled and I can do what I like. Until he made the next word. He said, "I'm going to have to bring your mum and dad in." And they would have kicked the crap out of me for doing what I did. So I started crying.
Yeah.
And he turned around to me and he said, "Look," I said, "I'll give you a chance." And he gave me a chance. But it's the lesson I learned from the chance was the thing, because I left school a year later. He said, "I leave you in school if you tell yourself every day you like school." And I'm going, this guy is a freaking nut. What am I going to say? Like, of course I'm going to say this, brother. Like, he's not going to tell my mum and dad. So every day, what I didn't realize is that Brother Keating come to me every day and said, like, "How are you getting on, Pat?" And I started saying, "Great, brother. Great, brother." "How's Mr. Russell?" "How's Brother Wright?" "Great, brother." And eventually the hatred that I had for it didn't become as obvious, right?
Just giving you a
Give me
mantra,
a
yeah.
mantra. So anyway, years later, as things went by, I kept on using the mantra. I got so after I take my life through suicide, and then I go, "Jesus Christ, this is terrible, right? Okay, like here I was, like as a successful entrepreneur and things like that, and I lost everything. My wife was going to be thrown out of her house." And then it was like I was way down, and then I thought of Brother Keating. "Do you know, that's not bad. I'll have a good story." So I try to see the opposite side of the negative, right? And then eventually I started climbing, and then like I never forget when I said I was going to climb first, 1 in 4 would die on Everest. And my dad and mom, because they love me to bits, right? Okay. But 1 in 4 would die. So my
1 in 4 would die, yeah. And your parents would go, "What is he
and
doing?"
my dad was crying, right? Okay. It was just after I went broke, I came up with this, but it's a long story.
Crazy idea, yeah.
And he said, "Son, you're going to die?" And I said, "Dad, like, I'm not going to die. I'll be careful." But he says, and I said, "What do you want me to do?" And mom was there. Said, "For God's sake, son, will you take up golf?" Right? Okay, so I went to bed and I was thinking about it. The following morning, I got up front page of our national paper at the time. Again, like you probably know from being there in the Examiner. Headlines: "Golfer hit with golf ball dies." Well, that finished
that was your argument.
I went on, and I had lots of, adversity in that, lots of tragedies. I've been to the coldest, loneliest, most remote places on this planet, the most beautiful. But at the same time, over 50 people I know have died at that level, right? And all I remember is I've nearly died a few times myself. And as I was going even to the top of the world, like, and I thought I was in two dimensions. I thought of Brother Keating, right? I was saying, I was looking up there at myself. I was looking down there at myself, right? And crossing the highest ridge and planet Earth. And then I said, like, if I'm still alive, I don't know this life or not, it'd be a great story. And I kept going. And I got to the top together. And a few years ago, that was 15, that was 40 odd years later. And I wrote this in some of my books. There was a man standing at my back door and knocked. And he said, an old man, he said, "I'm looking for Pat Falvey." I said, "I'm Pat Falvey." He said, "I'm Brother Keating."
What?
And he said, "I followed your career all your life." And then I said, "But what are you doing here, brother?" He said, "I read one of your books." And he says, "You're the only one that said something positive about a Christian brother." And I said,
Wow.
"Thanks, brother." I said, and all I'm saying to you is you never know how you're going to influence someone if you stay on the positive side. So it's like, stay positive, try to be happy. Happy is a state of mind, right? And I'm going to tell you this. Is it okay not to be happy? Yes. Right? Is it okay not to be okay? Yes. But the one thing I will say, this is where you need help. This is where you need to have people that have your back. This is where you need to, every now and then when you go into that state, is to have those people, like I have family and I have friends that keep on doing it. Do I get down? Yes, I do. Is there periods of my time I'm not 98%? Yes, there is, right? It's okay not to be okay, but it's not okay not to be okay all of the time, right? So when you get to that state, you need help. And the question I'll ask for you, whose back have you? Because most people are very selfish. I would say that I probably was one of the most selfish people in the world, right? To do what I did. I'm separated for 36 years, but myself and my wife still love each other. She said if you had stayed like Pat, you'd never have turned out to be the man that you had been. And then on top of that, I learned a great thing, because many years ago, my sons came to me and they said, Dad, we love you very much, but you realize what you missed. And we're not going to have enough time to talk all about this, right? Okay. But I said, what do you mean, son? And he said, Dad, you missed parent-teacher meetings, you met communions, you missed funerals. And he said, now that you're still alive, I was in my 50s. He said, Dad, you have grandchildren, right? Your mom and dad are still alive. So I changed it. And I just give two verses, because I suppose I know so much about my story, and I try to instill the belief in others, right? I could probably talk to you for 4 hours,
and I think we'd enjoy it.
Here is something that I learned. Look, I was the person that didn't fit in. I'm known as a maverick. My last book is called The Accidental Rebel. Basically, I do realize that I was different. I was hungry and aggressive in my earlier years, right, to succeed. Then I learned about, I got a kick in the ass and I went down. And then then I realized that it's only for the people that were around me. I couldn't actually survive, right? But here's one, right? This is Pat Falvey. And it's for a lot of successful people that do stuff that actually creates conflict within their family lives and everything else. But I'm going to give you the first and the end verse, right? And I dedicated one book to my family on one of the verses, and then the last one at the end, right? Okay, with 120 Buddhist candles, right? There's a breed of men that don't fit in, a breed that can't keep still. So they break the heart of kith and kin, and they roam the world at will. They range the field, they rove the flood, and they climb the mountain's crest. For theirs is the curse of the gypsy's blood, for they don't know when to rest. Okay? Well, that was me. And it's a lot of people out there, because they're constantly driven by the next thing in their life. And I'm not saying that's good, by the way. And again, there's different things for different people. And I suppose I've gone through the stage. But when I got to my 50s, I came back from the Antarctic after one of these most amazing expeditions. And I came back in thousands of people there. My son, Patrick, comes along. He gives me a hug and he said, Dad, welcome back. And then he says to me, he said, Dad, do you know what you missed throughout your life to be one of the most successful people that a lot of people know? He said, what, son? And this is where balance now could have come in. And this is what I try to also tell people, have a balance, right? He said, you missed parent-teacher meetings, you missed funerals, you missed weddings, you missed all of those, right? He said, your mom and dad are still alive. Everybody still loves you. In other words, I probably was like the Del Boy. It's I was that rogue, that the rogue you love to love, And some people will actually love to hate that rogue. But the thing with it is, I'm talking about the people that love the rogue. And he said, Dad, it's not too much, it's not too late to change your drive and your ambition. So what it became then was my family after he said it. But I dedicated another book, and I came to the end verse. It's a Robert Service verse, right? But if I had kept going, I'm now 68, right? I do have a couple of conditions going. Will I get to 80? I don't know, but basically I'm still happy. I said to my oncologist, I said, look, I'm not afraid of dying. I'm afraid of not living. Right? But here is a verse, right? Okay, that I changed too, right? The end of Robert Service's poem. He has failed, he has missed his chance. He has only done things by half. Now life's been a jolly good joke on him, and now it's time to laugh. He is one of the legions lost. He was never meant to win. He's a rolling stone and bred in the bone of the man that didn't fit him. So I decided I will fit him. And that's the hardest thing I'll ever do. I want to become I would say, no, my kids may not say that, but they probably would. I wasn't the best father in the world, right? I was out there working, providing, and doing all this, but I was also very selfish, achieving what I wanted to achieve. Now that my new goal is to fit in, I want to, you know, I can't become the best father, you know, like, even though I do hope they love me for what I've done, right? Okay. But what I can try to do, and I'm not saying it'll work, but it's like, that's the Everest I have now, is to become the best grandfather that I can become. And now what I'm finding is that my grandchildren's love for me is unconditional, right? Because I wasn't the father, I'm now the grandfather. And now they introduce me, like my little grandson has an amputated leg, right? Okay. He's only 12, but he'll be bringing his friends across. That's my granddad, he's climbed Everest. Like, little young fellas have said, do you really climb Everest? Even at 6, they know what Everest is. Right.
Yeah.
And so like, I'm saying with a word of caution, right? And I suppose I now have more empathy, and that's another thing. We go through all these changes in life, right? The most important thing is that you evolve. You keep evolving. You keep on saying, we have only one life. Life isn't a rehearsal, it's a performance. Also, like, you know, what I do know is that the average lifespan that most people have is 80. 50%, by the way, will be dead before they're 80. 50% will be geriatrics, right? And like 80 is like a benchmark, right? Okay, that I would love to get to. Right? Hopefully 100. I know but like, then when I look at 50 of the people that I know that has died on average between 35 and say 55, I feel very privileged. I'm at 60 and I've done what I've done, because, you know, so I would say, for me, it's all about being the best that I can be. That's all. All I ever did, I never went out to, you know, to be what you called out earlier, right? I went out to be the best that I could be at everything I did. That's all.
And that's what just happened. You end up achieving all these things. I know we're coming to the end. The one question was I over the weekend, I felt I had a dose of flu and I just wasn't feeling well. And I don't know, I went outside to the bin something at one stage during the day, and I felt bloody freezing. I just felt miserable. And I thought to myself, I'll be speaking to Pat later in the week. I said, what's it like when you're halfway up Everest or on an expedition that's going to take you, I don't know, weeks and weeks and weeks, and you're in a tent, or you're on a mountainside and it's freezing cold and you just feel awful. I'm sure you've been there on many occasions. How do you endure? How do you keep going? Because at that stage, I had to put the bloody bin out. I was complaining about it. How do you endure? I'm sure you've had those moments where you've just really felt like, I can't go on.
Well, I think first and foremost that when you're in it, right? I see I suppose there's two other things. Is I do these things because I'm a hyper person, right? And like, even as we stand now, there's all these radio waves flying through back and forward, right? Okay. And there I am, I'm thinking about mortgages, and I don't have a mortgage, so I'm okay now. But the thing with it is, you have all the worries of life. What I remember years ago, I went to the Himalayas to find myself after I tried to take my life through suicide, because, you know, like the way everyone was saying their life to try to find themselves. And what I found out when I went out, I was going to become a dropped out hippie in Dubar Square, smoking pot. And I know your visualization of the hippie is the long hair and things like that. And by the way, I did have long hair. So
you did,
it was 30 years ago, like 40 or 50 years ago. But the thing with it is, I went into a Buddhist retreat center, like, you know, I hear the drums, and like, I was sitting there, and like, for some reason, these Buddhists came over to me, these Buddhist monks, and they became my mentors. When they listened to my story, they said, Pat, you have to go back, right? And you have to tell your stories, right? And you have to inspire you more. And I said, I don't want to be wealthy anymore. And they said, look, there's no harm in having a bit of wealth and having everything that you want, provided you're not greedy. And when you get to a stage, you give some of the way to help others, right? Okay, so I took up that, and I came back. But then in the hustle and bustle of the modern day life we live in, I found that when they were treating me with Prozac when I was depressed, I needed an endorphin, right? Which was called challenge, right?
Yes.
So here goes. Some people say to me, how is it that you can spend 60 days on the ice with 2,000 ice all
Yeah.
around you? Because I found that I could be with me. No distractions. It was pure survival.
Wow.
And I remember Jerry Ryan saying to me one time, that's actually a famous radio presenter here in Ireland.
Very famous. Yeah. One of the best, in my view. One of the best.
So he says to me, like, what are you doing? He says, being out there at minus 60 degrees Celsius. And I said to him, I said, I'm looking for God. Right? It was a throwaway keeping lunch, right? Okay.
Yeah.
And like I use that a lot of the time, like, what are you doing? I'm looking for God, you know. And he said, did you find him? And I said, I did. Right? Which is actually true, right?
Yeah.
And he said, how do you mean? And he said, where is he? I said, I'm God. Right? I was down in the Antarctic. I said, I'm God.
Yeah.
And then he goes, what? And like, because I'm kind of quirky. And I said, yeah, but I'm also the devil.
Yeah.
And I said, right, when I come down here, I can go into my inner self, right? It's away from the hustle and bustle of modern. And this will come around to the fact of keeping going, right? And then I said, but not alone did I find that, but I said, Claire is God, and Jonathan is God, and Sean is God, and you're God too. Because in reality, we are like heaven and hell in our own bodies, right? And this is where I learned about happiness, right? So you can create the heaven and hell. I'm what we call, my mother used to kill me for saying it, like I'm a Buddhist by philosophy, which isn't a religion. I'm Catholic by religion, and I'm afraid that I'm going to go to hell, but she keeps on telling me she's up in heaven, she's going to pull me up. And I'm an agnostic in existence, right? Whether there's a God or a heaven or a hell. Right?
Yeah.
If I get into trouble, I suppose, like I swear I'd never do this again. So please call me a cowardly Catholic and actually pulling out all the options. And it's probably something what Del Boy would do anyway, right? So the thing with it,
I don't think Del Boy scaled Everest, but
he had his own Everest. He had his own Everest.
He had his own Everest.
I must keep on saying that people have their own Everest. Like we're talking kind of a little bit out, like the motivational side is that everyone has an Everest, and I don't differentiate that Everest to my.
It doesn't. I agree. No, I think that's a very important point to make.
Because like some people say, oh, like he's done all of this, like, and it's not like me. I am. It's about attributes.
Yeah. You're just doing Pat,
failure, like family, all of those things, right?
Yeah.
So like I happen to be able to speak all around the world because I became the first person to have done what I've done, right? But I do actually appreciate the fact, like you wanted to talk to me because of Everest or Antarctica or all these other achievements, but everybody has them. Everybody has them. And how you succeed is about attributes. It's about positivity. It's about being a good mentor, a good coach to yourself. Everyone is out there. When you say I'm a mentor or a coach, like everybody is in their own lives. They could be to their kids. But, you know, when you put yourself into those situations, it's like I said, when I was crossing the highest gangplank on planet Earth and didn't know that I was dead or alive, you know, your mindset and your psychology of your subconscious and your conscious mind. I have a very strong conscious mind, right? I keep on saying, like, I'm going to pull this back and I'm going to get there, right? Okay. And when you're freezing cold and it's minus 60 degrees Celsius and there's 2 inches of ice up over your hands, and you wake in the morning and you said, there's all these millions and millions of people following me and they want to see what am I doing. And then I go, and I go, big. And I'm ready to get up. There's never a morning, I might be tired. There's never, ever a morning that I don't want to live the next day of my life.
You just get up.
And I get up and I live it. And when I'm in the most horrifying situations, and I've nearly died a few times, I think of my family. And that drives me on to the next day. So like, if it's a case I'm out in the most hostile terrain on planet Earth, right? I know, like, whereas, my kids are one thing. Now it's my grandchildren. I would love to be around. Like, I have a couple of conditions, right? Okay, that I hope that I can. They're one of my Everests now that I have to try to conquer, right? But I want to be
Mm.
around for Lily's, a confirmation. Maybe when she gets married. If you look at even people like that, even have very terminal situations and they have an objective, like they want to stay around for their daughter's wedding, or their daughter going to college, or their son to college. In actual fact, you have to have that inner drive to get you up the next day of your life. So I would say to me, I'm enjoying it. Like, I'm up this morning, but I'm enjoying getting up tomorrow morning because I
Yeah.
mightn't,
You might.
right?
Well, please God, you will.
Yeah, but I might go out the door. You might too.
Yeah,
What?
you never know.
I'm
You never know.
grateful for every day because, as my Buddhist mentors would say, life isn't a rehearsal, it's a performance. So live today because tomorrow you may not. So if you try to live your next day the best that you can be, right? Then, and you get another day and you're living the best that you can be, right? And in between those, it's okay not to be okay, but it's to remember that that there is a next day, you should try to be okay, right? And sometimes it determines help. Sometimes it determines, having a coach or a mentor. And most importantly is to have someone to talk to. Right, I'm setting up the thing called the Forever Young Club. Whether it ever gets there or not, it's my third prolification of it. But you can see I'm not a person that gives up, right?
No.
And I keep on saying the mistakes I make. I keep on reinventing, and I guess sometimes I can lose fucking fortunes. Sorry, excuse. I could use fortunes from trying to actually re-prolificate. One day I probably stop, but But at the moment, I'm still full of enthusiasm. I probably have enough ideas to keep going till I'm 100. I have 9 more books.
Are you still leading expeditions?
In August, I was after they telling me something that I didn't want to hear, headed off for a month down to South America and had a group down there, and we did Chicora, Machu Picchu route. Then I came back for a week and I headed off to Africa. I climbed Kilimanjaro. Then I came back and I went to Poland and to Tatras. Then I came back, went back out to Kilimanjaro, climbed it for the 66th time. Then I came back for 2 weeks, and then I headed down to the Himalayas for my 70th trip to the Himalayas, my spiritual. Then I came back, then I went on a series of talks, and then we're trying to, John, who's, you could say, partnered up with me here in the lodge, probably my right-hand man. We then did a series of walks. We set up a series of sales. We're looking into next year. We're trying to figure out how do we get this Forever Young Club going. And we're just a very small team. And then I'm back to the Himalayas in April, and then it starts all over again. And so, I would do 4 major treks a year with people, because people say, but how do you do it? I've climbed Carntool probably over 3,000 times. That's Ireland's highest mountain, right? And people say, how do you do it? Because every time I do it, it's different. And lots of times people be with me, you could be with me. And it's to see, an 80-year-old or a 14-year-old get to the summit, or someone to be down with their sons on Kilimanjaro or out to Everest Base Camp. That's where my joy comes from now, is to see other people fulfill their bucket list, their dream. So, by the way, I will make a plug. If it's a case that you are thinking of doing any of those things, then get on to www.patfalvey.com, right? And that would...
Pat, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. And I'm sitting here thinking, this is why I do this show. Because as I said at the beginning, anyone can look at your achievements, but I really feel I've gotten an insight into who Pat Falvey is and what makes you tick, which is really inspiring. And I do think I have a much better understanding of why you do what you do now and how you've managed to do it. So it's been a pleasure to have you on the podcast. I really appreciate your time.
And the same, Paul, and I do hope that maybe we've left a small couple of nuggets for your listeners out there. And as I say, anytime, it's just been a pleasure. I love doing these things because it is about spreading the word.
Well, I think there's been tremendous value here today, and I would certainly point everyone to patfalvey.com. even if you don't want to go on expedition, just read about it. Read what you've done, read your biography. It's just really interesting. Pat, thank you
And
very,
on
very
that,
much.
gratitude. And as we say, like in the Buddhist philosophy, namaste.
Namaste. Thank you.